Hey Aubrey, how's everything going today?
Excellent. I've been having a great morning actually. I don't know, do you ever just, like, wake up in a really great mood?
Yeah,
Some
for
days are better than
sure.
others. Today was really good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that definitely happens to me. Sunshine really helps.
Oh, yeah, for
Is it a
sure.
sunny day today?
Actually, it's not, so that's
Okay,
funny.
so
It's a
you're
little
just
bit a little
yeah.
cloudier, which is a good thing in Arizona because it's always sunny, right? I love a
Yeah.
cloudy day.
Yeah.
I have
That's
a
awesome.
question for you
Mhm.
here, Lindsay. This is going to be so interesting today, but I'm
Yes.
wondering, have you ever been lost?
Oh, I'm trying to think. No, nothing that I
That's a
can
good
really
thing.
think of right now. I guess there's been like a few like things where I thought maybe I was lost and I wasn't. What
Hmm.
about you? It sounds like you have a story.
Oh, yeah, just briefly, I was hiking by myself actually, which is probably never wise, but
Oh,
a slot
no.
canyon near Moab,
Oh god.
and I thought it was about a 2-mile loop, and I hiked and I had hiked about 7 miles, and after about 2 or 3 miles, I started really being worried because it was supposed to loop back to the trailhead. Turned out I just didn't realize it's actually an 8-mile loop, so I wasn't really lost, I was on the trail, but I thought I was for a few miles, which was very scary, and even though
Very
it was
scary.
only about an hour, I can't imagine being lost for days,
For
especially
days.
in, an unfamiliar area. We are excited to get into this. Jonathan Acosta's his name, recently was featured in the news. He was lost in the Amazon jungle and survived 31 days. He's from Bolivia.
That's
I loved
incredible.
the story. I'm so amazed, but also kind of horrified to think about what it would be like to go through that.
Yeah, I love survival stories, well, obviously, especially when they end in a good way.
Absolutely.
I think it taps into a lot of human emotions. Aubrey, I hope you don't go hiking in Moab by yourself anymore. It really made me think of the movie with James Franco where he
Oh,
ended up, like, cutting
no.
off his arm. Do you remember? Like, he went
27
to
hours, I
Moab.
think.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think it was in Utah somewhere. He's went mountain biking, crazy dude, like, "I can do anything," and then he falls into a canyon and gets stuck there, and
Mm.
he's there for, like, a week. And he has to cut off his arm to get out of the canyon. It's crazy, so
Right,
please don't
moral
hike
of the
alone.
story, don't hike alone, guys.
No,
I
please
know,
don't.
I think that's the only time I ever did because I, like, woke up early, everyone was still asleep,
Wow.
and we had, gone to these slot canyons the day before, and my little twins were babies and had fallen asleep in the car, so everyone hiked the slot canyon but me, I had to stay behind with the babies.
Yeah.
So I felt like, "Oh, they all did this hike, it was safe, it was pretty easy,"
Oh.
and I thought it was, like, about 2 miles because it didn't take them very long. Turned out they just sort of went in and came back. They didn't do the whole
Okay.
loop. So anyway, it
Got it.
felt safe because I was a little familiar, but still, it's still not a
Yes.
good idea. Don't hike
Oh.
alone. That's our
Oh my
PSA.
gosh. All right, that's our PSA, our public service announcement. Well, let's get into this story more. So, this guy
Yeah.
was hiking in the Bolivian jungle, right close to the Amazon, or essentially, it is the Amazon. I've been to that
Yeah.
part of Bolivia before, actually, and it
Ooh,
is
awesome.
technically, I think, in the Amazon or right on the border of it.
That's what it was
Um,
reported as. It said "Lost in the Amazon jungle," which
mhm.
I haven't been there myself, but I've seen quite a few films that feature that area, and it seems like it'd probably be the scariest place, just the all of the animals and snakes and everything
Oh
that
my
could
god.
potentially happen, I would be thinking of the whole time.
Yeah, the Amazon is probably one of the wildest parts of the whole world.
Yeah.
And being by yourself, we don't know what kind of survival skills he had. So give us a little more detail. How did he get separated? What happened? How did he end up
Yeah,
on his own? Yeah.
so this is very breaking news right now because we record a little bit in advance. Police are currently sort of investigating, talking because he was separated from 4 friends when they were out hunting in northern Bolivia,
Hmm.
and so we don't have a lot of details yet. I'm wondering how much will come up. You guys listening might want to look into it because I think that more and more will come out to find out sort of details about that. So he did have a gun with him, but he had very limited ammunition and he ended up
Hmm.
having to use his last bullet to scare away a group of peccaries, which I hadn't heard of this animal. Sounds like a
Hmm.
javelina here in Arizona, a pig-like mammal. But when there's
Hmm.
a group of them, of course, that's deadly.
Oh, scary. I think yeah, it's like a wild hog or something, I
Right.
think.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Terrifying. And jaguars. Geez, that seems like the
Yes.
stuff of movies to me, doesn't it?
Imagine being stalked by a jaguar. Ooh. But he
Oh.
survived 31 days. I am so inspired by this story. He ate worms and insects. He collected rainwater in his shoes. So he clearly had good survival instincts, possibly some training. I don't know if I could survive 31 days alone in the Amazon. I'd like to believe I
No
could, but it's
way.
doubtful.
There's no way I would survive. I have 0 survival skills. Like, I would die the first day or 2. I would be out for the count.
Right. I
Yeah.
loved that he, was very emotional about the fact that people continued to search for him for this length of time, right? He was found by a group of friends and locals that were still searching after 31 days. He heard
Mhm.
them and started yelling and running toward them, and this is how
Mm.
he was rescued, and if people had given up, hadn't continued, he likely would not have survived.
Oh, thank God, thank God. Okay. So in today's episode, we're pulling in a current event that's interesting and everyone is going to take I think it's human nature to care about survival, right? When we're in those moments, we do
Absolutely.
everything we possibly can to survive. It's like something that kicks in to the human brain. And so when we hear these stories, it's almost like we're transported to being that person being chased by a jaguar, right? There's something we really connect with this guy.
Absolutely, right? Our adrenaline starts to increase, our heart races a little bit imagining because we have that human connection, right? The solidarity of
Exactly.
knowing we potentially could be in his shoes. We could be in that same position.
100%, 100%. I've seen a lot of documentaries of Everest. I watch these. I don't know why. I'm just fascinated
Mm,
by survival documentaries, right? Where like especially adventure travel and adventure sports like hiking, up places in Asia.
yes.
There's lots of stuff. Have you read that book about Everest? What is that? By John Krakauer. It's a really good
Yes,
story.
they made
Into
it
Thin
into a
Air.
film as well,
Yeah.
right? I haven't read
Yeah.
the book, but I did see the film,
That's a
and it
great
was
one.
I feel like I know why you are attracted to those stories, right? Because not
Yeah.
only is there the sort of fear and excitement, adrenaline, but also it's very, um, m motivating to be inspired by
Yeah.
what someone else is able to survive.
Yeah, and you get kind of a glimpse into what you could do or what this person did. It's
Yes,
it's a story of human triumph, exactly. So, I would imagine our listeners might want to watch documentaries like this or talk about this story in English with someone,
absolutely.
right?
Yes, right, if you see something like this in the news, just like Lindsay and I did, it's so interesting to talk about, right? You say, "Did you hear about the guy who got lost in the Amazon jungle and
Mhm.
survived for 31 days?" That's the best kind of conversation, like, how interesting is that to chat about and to be inspired by?
Yeah, I love it. So today we're gonna share some idioms that our listeners can deploy in these
Yes.
conversations. Yeah,
Exactly,
so
right?
good.
If you have that conversation with someone, there are some great idioms in English about being in a very difficult situation or making the best of a tough situation, and you'll want to use these idioms to make the conversation that much more interesting.
Yeah, let's get into it. So the first one is one that I feel like this expression has been around forever. It just feels very
Yes.
classic, right? And the expression is in dire straits. To be in dire straits, right? The to be verb here,
Yep.
guys. It means really just to be in serious trouble or having a major difficulty, right?
Exactly, right? We'll give you a couple example sentences. For example, when I forgot to bring water on the hike, I realized I was in dire straits,
Oh
right?
my
Which
gosh.
means I was in trouble. I was in a difficult
Yeah.
situation.
And I hope you didn't also forget to bring water on that hike in Moab.
No, luckily
No?
not. In
Okay,
Arizona,
good.
we're pretty good about, like, you have to have water.
Yes.
There people
It's
have
no joke.
actually perished from not having enough water on a hike in the desert.
Oh my gosh, places in the West, it's no joke. On the East Coast, you leave your water at home, you'll probably be okay. But in the West, I mean, the
You might
sun is
stumble upon a
incredible.
lake.
Yeah, right.
You
There's
might get
water.
giardia, but you
Right,
won't
right.
die of
But at
thirst.
least, yeah, you might die of giardia, but
Right.
yeah.
Which is worse? I don't know.
Anyways, all right. So here's another sample sentence. I feel like I'm in dire straits because I've been assigned a project at work that I don't feel qualified for. Yeah. So what's the threshold in your mind, Aubrey, for using this expression?
Yeah, so
Like,
this
how
would
serious
be
does the situation have to be? Mhm.
it definitely needs to be an actual, like, difficulty or struggle. It can't be like, "Oh, I'm in dire straits. I forgot my, phone, but I went and got it," right? It's something that's not a big deal. But
Yeah.
I do feel like there are times at work where I feel like I'm in over my head, right?
Mhm,
I and
mhm.
then I think this would be appropriate to be like, "I'm kind of in dire straits. I'm stuck in this situation.
Right.
I feel like I've been assigned something I don't feel qualified for. I'm not sure what to do." That
Mhm.
can definitely qualify. But
Sure.
you're right, it needs to be a pretty serious situation. It's not something we use to like make light of something
Right. So pretty serious, either like you're physically in trouble or like you said, you're concerned
mentally.
at because you're worried that your reputation at work is in danger or something like that, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Yes. So what's number 2?
Okay, so this one is to be at one's wits' end, right? I'm at my wits' end, which is that you're worried or confused or annoyed, and so you don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
So let's share this. I use this a lot. I'm at my wits' end with my children a lot, I think is when I say that.
I bet. So maybe that's annoyed, right? Or just sort of like,
Uh-huh.
oh,
And
right? You're
worried. Yeah, it could be
worried.
worried or annoyed. I think
Mhm.
both.
Yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
depends on the context because we do use it for both.
Okay, I love that. At one's I like how these phrases are kinda classic sounding today, right? They're
Yes.
classic. Or one of the members of my team, so this is at work, one of the members of my team isn't pulling their weight. I'm at my wit's end. Right? So
Nice. And I love that bonus, pulling their weight, right? Meaning they're not
mhm.
accomplishing what they're assigned. They're not doing their fair share to say, someone isn't pulling their weight. I'm at my wits' end. Meaning, and that could be both, right? I'm worried about the outcome. I'm frustrated by this
Yeah.
teammate.
Yeah, and it's important to note here with wit's end, it's the end of something. So, with the team thing, you really wouldn't use this on the first day of the team meeting when you've just been assigned to that team, right? It doesn't make any
Right.
sense. Maybe you've
Exactly.
been
Then would
working
say
for
maybe
3
I'm
months.
frustrated.
I'm frustrated. It has to really be it's quite a we're not gonna say a certain amount of time, but it has to feel like it's been going on for a while, I think.
Yeah, I can see that, and but we do use it. Here's another example. When I was hiking, right?
Mhm.
I might say I wandered off the trail, and I
Right.
was at my wit's end when I couldn't find it. And that
Yeah.
just means like I was really extremely worried pretty quickly, right? You wander off the
Pretty
trail for
Mhm.
a good, a few minutes. I think you could say like, "Oh, I'm at my wit's end." And
Yeah.
so that's a good point though. You wouldn't if you're a little frustrated with something at the beginning, we wouldn't say this. It needs
Yeah.
to be like, "Oh, I'm really worried," or "I'm really
Yeah.
frustrated because this has been an issue for a little while."
Right, it has to match the seriousness of the situation. Your situation hiking was serious because, like, you were in danger being lost potentially, right? So
Yeah,
that
as soon as you're really
merits that.
worried, oh,
Mhm.
you're at your wit's
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good example. Alright. Okay, Aubrey, we have a 3rd, and I like this one. What is it?
Yes. Tough it out, which I can definitely imagine Jonathan, right, who's in the news, this man from Bolivia. This is what he did, right? He, for 31 days, he toughed it out. This is to deal with a difficult situation without becoming less certain of your goal or plan. And I
Mm.
guess, hopefully he believed that he was going to survive, be rescued. Either way, you're
Yes.
toughing it out if you're not giving up.
Yeah, you have to keep your belief, right? You can't give up. You really can't give up. Wow.
Mhm.
So here's some sample sentences. Our tent started leaking when it rained, but we toughed it out all night. So what does that mean? So you just kind of
Yeah.
slept in the water.
Yep, you're like, "There's nowhere else we can go, we're not gonna
Yeah,
hike out in the night." This
right.
has happened to me before where we're in a tent and it's leaking on us, so we just kinda move our sleeping bags to the edge to try not to be dripped on, and you just
Yeah,
tough it out. Like,
that
you
was the
just sleep
worst.
with the water coming in, there's nothing
Yeah,
else you can do.
yeah, that's the worst. I know. Any other samples?
And then you can say, "Unfortunately, we're on a very tight budget for this project, but we're just going to have to tough it out." Right? So that
Hmm.
might mean like our budget is not what we would like, but
Yep,
we're just gonna make the best of the situation and
yep.
tough it out.
Yeah, so as you guys can see in this episode, we've had examples for the business world and for just your world, your social life outside of work. So all these phrases do work in both places, right, Aubrey?
Absolutely. We use them in business English. We also use them with just friends and family, talking about hiking, getting lost, right? They're
Yeah.
applicable for both. Absolutely.
Okay, let's do a role play. So here, you and I are discussing a challenge that I recently faced. Here
Yeah.
we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I missed a flight coming home yesterday and there were no other available flights. I was at my wits' end.
Oh, no. What did you do? It sounds like you were really in dire straits.
Yep. To make matters worse, there were no hotels available, so I had to tough it out and sleep at the airport. Oof.
Oh, rough.
Yeah. It sounds like this past holiday season when I was trying to get back. Oh,
Did you
man.
have to sleep in the airport?
I've never
Ooh,
had to do that. I've never had to
that's
do
good
that.
at least.
So, but we had flights canceled 3, 4, 5 times,
Ugh.
delays up to 8 hours at a time. I
I feel like
think
this happens a lot around the holidays, right? And it could be
mm,
that staff has requested time off and not been allowed it, so they call in sick and they're just super short-staffed. Who
yeah,
knows?
I think Southwest had, like, a disaster with their computer system is what happened
Oh,
there.
gotcha. That'll do it
Yeah.
too.
They didn't keep their infrastructure up to date, so now they have to update that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Well, let's go through this. So you first used I was at my wit's end, and this
Mhm.
is applicable here, right? If you get a flight canceled, you're trying to get home for, a holiday, important time or work, and there are no other flights, I would be at my wit's end.
Oh my gosh, so many people this past holiday
Yeah.
literally missed Christmas entirely.
Yes.
Like, they had to go home like, they went to the airport trying to get somewhere for the holiday and ended up just going back home after waiting in the airport for a couple of days. I mean, it
That
was
happened to my
serious.
neighbors. They went to
Yes.
Florida and then they missed their flight, and so Christmas was just waiting for them at home when they got there, like, December 27th or
Oh my
whenever.
gosh, it was a disaster. Yeah, so that's a great example of, so many people in the airport were at their wits' end between
Absolutely.
December 24th and, January 3rd because it went on for quite a while.
I feel like this is really where someone's true character shows, like, are you able to remain, kind and respectful to, like,
Right.
airport workers when you are at your wit's end? That is a skill.
It's not easy, it's not
It's not
easy.
easy. A lot of us get frustrated and impatient.
Oh, for sure. And then let's see, okay, and then going back to our role play here, guys. "Oh, no, what did you do?" Right? "It sounds like you were really in dire straits," is the next thing that you said, Aubrey.
Yes. So
Mhm.
I'm empathizing here, right? You're sharing this awful thing that happened to you. If you tell me you were at your wit's end, this applies. Be like, oh no, it sounds like you were in dire straits. What happened?
Right, and it's empathy, right? This is empathy, this is connection. Having something we talk about this a lot on Allers English. When someone shares something that's serious or funny or anything, you need to be able to reflect back, guys, with another vocabulary word that mirrors that level of
Absolutely.
seriousness, right?
Yes, and this is the perfect example, right? If you now that you have this vocabulary, you'll be able to do that. Someone shares this intense, frustrating experience, and you'll be able to have something to say to let them know that you're feeling their pain.
Yeah, that is huge. That is such a connection moment. And then the last thing, right? There were no hotels available, so I had to tough it out and sleep at the airport. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So just making the best of a difficult situation. There are no hotels. What are you going to do? You tough it out. You sleep on the chair.
Exactly. What should our listeners keep in mind as we finish up today?
Yeah, so I love the idea of following Jonathan's example, right? He persevered in this extremely difficult situation. And the same is definitely applicable for you guys with your English, right?
Mhm.
You're here, you're listening to an amazing podcast, learning this great vocabulary. You're going to face challenges in your English learning journey, and you can't let them hold you back.
Yeah, let's tough it out. Let's tough it out with our English,
Yes,
guys. And then that final piece that I think is so key is, like I said before, the ability to respond with an equal kind of a vocabulary word that matches, right? That's what kind of human connection
yes.
is sort of matching someone. It's the mirror neurons, right?
Absolutely. It would be sort of
Mhm.
a missed connection if all you could say is like, "Oh, that sounds terrible." And
Yeah,
you're
a
not
missed
if you
moment.
instead have this interesting vocabulary to really share, "Oh, it sounds like you were at your wit's end. I'm sorry that happened." That's
Yeah.
really elevating the connection.
Yeah, that's gonna deepen it. I love it. So
Yeah.
good. Okay, Aubrey, this has been a really good one, guys. Hit follow on the Allers English podcast. And also, Aubrey, where else can our listeners find you? You're all over the place. Where
Yes, if you happen to be studying for IELTS, you definitely want to follow the IELTS Energy podcast. Jessica and I are recording over there 2 episodes every week with all of the strategies, vocab you need to get the score you need on the IELTS exam.
Yeah, it is such a good way to prep for IELTS. We don't have to be bored when we prepare for this important exam. Actually, we shouldn't because we can
No,
get a
we
higher
should not be.
score.
I know, and our
We
brain is more
enjoy it.
engaged if we're learning in an
Exactly.
interesting way, for sure.
We've got it over there for you guys. So go to the search bar right now, type in IELTS Energy, and you will see that show pop up. Hit follow right over there. Good stuff. All right, Aubrey, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for hanging out.
Awesome. See you next
All right.
time. Bye.
Bye.